Welcome to the AI Chat Podcast. I'm your host, Jaden Schaefer. Every day, I cover cutting-edge AI news and talk with the leaders behind it, breaking down what it means for your life and business. Anthropic is finally letting Claude Co-Work go to your mobile device, your phone. On the Claude app, you've probably noticed you can get Claude Code over there, but Claude Co-Work was missing, so they're going to be releasing that soon. DeepSeek is planning their own inference chips to basically cut NVIDIA and Huawei out of the deal for them. They're trying to get around them, and they rely on them heavily. SK Hynix is planning a $28 billion US IPO or listing because the demand for their memory has made a 260% stock jump for them. So this company is growing like crazy. Solos is launching AirGo A6. These are smart glasses. They're only 19 grams, and essentially they're smart glasses with voice AI, but there is no camera in them. Vercel's Guillaume Rauch is betting on splitting AI models from agents, so he thinks that you're going to get more bang for your buck and more efficiency if you actually take the AI model away from the agent and have these as two separate things. In completely unrelated news, I got a text today from my city in North Carolina that said that we are in a drought and I'm only allowed to water my lawn if my house number is even every other day of the week. And then it has proceeded to rain all day long. I'm not sure if we were supposed to be saving water so the AI data centers don't run out, but I think we have enough rain now. The drought might be officially over. Okay, I'm super excited, maybe the most excited I've been in a while. Anthropic has just allowed Claude Co-Work to go on your mobile device, on your on the Claude app on your phone. Previously, it was only on your desktop computer, and it was actually pretty annoying because if you're doing something with Claude Code, you could remote control it from your phone, although it had some limitations. One of them being I found I had all the permissions were set the same way for my phone, so I still had to keep approving things over and over again, like the olden days, which was kind of brutal. But I'm really excited because now you can fire something off on your computer, leave, and you can keep, iterating with Claude Co-Work on your phone. And I think it's actually going to be able to take control of your computer still and do stuff. So this is actually insanely useful for so many things. At the same time, Claude has also published a list of what people are using Claude Co-Work for. So in case you need any ideas or you're curious, there's one graph in particular. They said that 33% of people are using Claude Co-Work for business processes and operations. 16% are using it for content creation and copywriting, and only 8.7%, so basically 9% are using it for software development. I actually use it for software development a lot, but I kind of toggle between Claude Co-Work and Claude Code. There's pros and cons to both of them. I find if I'm doing something where I need to be logging in on the browser to stuff and clicking around and grabbing files off my computer, I'm going to use Claude Co-Work. If I'm doing something that's more in just making pushes to my GitHub and stuff, I'm going to use Claude Code. So anyways, there's pros and cons, and I will say the biggest pro with Claude Code is that you just get way more mileage out of it. I burned through all my Claude Co-Work credits. I actually made a new Claude Max account just because I didn't want to run out of all my Fable credits, which shout out also Claude. Claude said that they're extending Fable 5, the use inside of the Claude app. If you have a Claude Max subscription, they're extending it to the 12th. They were supposed to end today on the 7th, but they're extending it to the 12th. So if you have Claude, you're going to get way more Fable 5. Now, the problem is if you're anything like me, you burnt all of your Fable 5 credits already. I made a new account yesterday, and I have officially burnt through all of my weekly credits already. So that's definitely a problem. I'm trying to work on that, and I have to wait till tomorrow, Wednesday, before it resets. The next things that people are using Claude for is DevOps and infrastructure, 7%, research and intelligence, 6.4%, data analysis and business intelligence, 5.8%, document processing and extraction, 4%, sales and revenue operations, 4%, and then everything else is about 14%. So the biggest thing is business processes and operations, content creation, and copywriting. That is basically 50% of what everybody is using it for. And now you'll be able to do all of that from your phone, which is a huge unlock. It's also on 24/7, so you can actually give it a task on your phone and then go to bed and it's done in the morning, which is really nice. I think I've had issues in the past when working with this similar type of software from my phone where it, if you turn your phone screen off, then it stops running, which is bad. So anyways, it's always on. It's from your phone. This will be fantastic. It is launching today. It is in beta, and it is for Max Plan subscribers. subscribers if you're paying $100 a month. It's also going to roll out to the pro users at $20 a month later on. Co-Work's demo that they showed with this basically showed it pulling data from email, Slack, and a bunch of different meeting transcripts, and was writing a document, drafting emails, and it was all doing that from your phone, which is really cool. But it was using your computer to, like your desktop, to do all those things, which is pretty sweet. DeepSeek, the popular Chinese LLM, is going to be designing their own chips to run inference. This is something that essentially they're doing to get away from relying on NVIDIA and, of course, their big competitor Huawei over in China, which currently dominates about half of China's data center chip market. What I will say is that inference chips are cheaper and faster to iterate on than training chips. So that's kind of DeepSeek's something that's going to help their own profit margin on every response that their model is actually generating. Alibaba and Baidu are both kind of pushing for similar custom chips. OpenAI, Broadcom have released their own inference chip, which is called Jalapeno. As far as the timeline goes, custom accelerators typically take about 3 to 5 years from design to production shipment. And DeepSeek, they haven't said, who any of their foundry partners. They haven't said anything about their timeline. They haven't said anything about their performance targets. So while they are starting to develop this, I don't think we're going to see it anytime very soon. SK Hynix is going to be selling shares on the U.S. stock market this week. They're raising about $28 billion, and they're letting anyone in the United States get access to the world's second largest memory chip maker. This is the first time this is happening, and if you remember my last episode, Samsung, SK Hynix, and one company out of Idaho are basically the only 3 people that can mass produce these custom memory chips for AI training at scale. This listing in particular is going to, they're really just trying to capitalize on the fact that in the last couple months, their stock has surged 260%. All of this is because of AI data centers, which desperately need high-speed memory chips to train and run AI models. SK Hynix is going to sell 17.8 million shares, and a lot of people are calling this entire situation Ramageddon because when they came out with their first quarter revenue, they're up about 200% year over year, just because all of the AI workloads have this massive shortage of RAM. And if you would take into account Samsung and everything going on there, SK Hynix and Samsung are both spending over $550 billion to build new memory factories. This is one of the largest coordinated equipment investments in semiconductor history. So they're working together, and there is a massive investment that is going in right now. Solos is launching Ergo A6 smart glasses. They're only 19 grams, and they've decided to cut out the camera entirely, but they do have voice AI built into them. This is a really interesting play because we have the competitors, which are Meta. We have Apple working on smart glasses. We have Google that has smart glasses going on right now. But Meta and Google both have cameras inside of theirs. I'm not exactly sure what's going on with Apple because, they're not going to come out for a few years, and we'll see that in a couple years because they're pretty slow with all of this. But it's kind of cool that in the meantime, while we're waiting for a lot of these other big players to come out with their smart glasses, we're getting some new firms in here making some cool stuff. This is super light. They say that they're privacy first design, and it's going to solve one of the biggest problems that smart glasses have. I think a lot of people I've seen complaining on LinkedIn and other places about the cameras, and if you're walking around and people have these Meta Ray-Bans, you never know if you're being recorded. It might make people uncomfortable if you're talking to them, if you're wearing them and you're worried that the cameras could be hacked while you're wearing them all day, right? There's a whole bunch of issues. So cutting out the cameras on these, it feels great to not just be walking around with a giant camera on your head all day long, and you get a lot of the benefit of the AI, which is, you can voice to text, talk to it, and get answers back on what you're seeing now, or what you're, talking about. Now, I think, of course, the biggest drawback here is if I'm looking at my car engine and I'm like, where is the specific cap I'm looking for? If I have the glasses on, it can actually let me know. In Google's case, they're going to be able to highlight things so you can actually see, which is really cool, but this won't have that capability. These glasses in particular have voice AI, and their assistant can handle anything from real-time translation, which is amazing. I think this is one of the greatest use cases of AI in these glasses. Calendar reminders, calls. They also let you hear the surroundings through speakers behind your ear, so they can amplify different things for you, which is really useful. I just might have to get myself a pair. Vercel, which is the platform where millions of AI agents deploy code daily, and when I say that, personally, I'm one of those people. Basically, I think all of my different softwares and apps are using Vercel to host all of the different sites that I have running right now, and the reason why is because it works incredibly well. And I think there's a bunch of other good ones, like Netlify probably does this, and I think Amazon has has a version as well. But Vercel seems to be one that has some incredible integrations and APIs and MCPs which connect to your Claude. And so you can have Claude or Codex or whatever you're using to code integrated really well, so it's easy to deploy code. So Vercel is betting that the future belongs to companies that are going to keep AI models and agents separate. So you're not bundling these together by one lab, which is basically what we've seen everyone doing so far. Their CEO, Guillermo Rauch, says that customers are already mixing OpenAI, Anthropic, Gemini, and open models like DeepSeek into infrastructure that treats models as a swappable part. And he says that companies that are facilitating that are the ones that are going to win. Vercel right now, so they say that they process about 6 million deployments per day. That's roughly half triggered by coding agents and over 1 trillion tokens flowing through their AI gateway daily. So, I mean, this really is a giant in the industry. They said that they shipped Eve, which is a framework for defining agents in plain language. And Vercel Sandbox lets you control what data internal agents can actually access, which I think is kind of the code leaking and training problem that a lot of people are worried about. They have framed this whole new paradigm by saying that this is putting them in direct competition with AI labs like OpenAI, which are building their own hosting and deployment tools directly into their products. Now, I will say I don't think I would ever use a hosting platform exclusively owned by OpenAI or Claude, Anthropic. The same way I actually don't love Lovable or other people that like are pretty deeply integrated. Even though Lovable uses Supabase as the database service, I still don't like how deeply integrated it was. For me to get off of Lovable was a huge pain. So I think there's going to be always a place for companies like Vercel that are independent and separate from the actual labs, because if you ever want to switch from OpenAI to Claude or from Claude to Codex, you want to have that kind of flexibility where it doesn't really matter what coding agent you're using. You've got to stay away from that vendor lock-in. And speaking of which, if you want to get access to over 80 different AI models all on the same account, I'd love for you to try out AIbox.ai. That's my own platform. I let you access everything from audio, image, video, even music generation models. There's over 80 of them. I mean, there's all the basic ones that you know, like Claude and OpenAI and Gemini, tons of open source ones you haven't heard of or tried before, some really cool video and audio powered AI tools on there. So if you want to check out all of that for only $8.99 a month, go check out AIbox.ai. I'll leave a link in the description. Otherwise, I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day.